Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. I'm Marco, and this edition is focusing on the situation in Mali. The military junta is under pressure internationally and regionally to return the country to democracy, but tensions and anti-French sentiment are on the rise, with the French ambassador even being expelled from the country. As France pulls out of the Sahel region, Russia and China are beginning to fill the void. Cyril Payne is our reporter following this story, just back from his latest mission in Mali. Great to see you, Cyril. Just raising this issue about Russian involvement, it's really provocative, isn't it?
Very much indeed, and the team, as you just mentioned, has spent the last weeks in a few trips in Mali, and you can see the increase of the Russian military pressure, but also the propaganda against the French, very much on the ground now, with demonstrations dedicated to the anti-French sentiment. So very much, yeah, we are in a very big provocations, and it looks like very much Moscow is trying to fill the gap against the French in this part of Africa.
Indeed, time of great change. Cyril, thank you very much indeed. Let's take a look now at Cyril Payne's report.
It's January 20th, 2022, Armed Forces Day in Mali, a day of exaltation for a transitional government whose key positions have been occupied by putschist military officers for the last 2 years. This is their leader, 39-year-old Assimi Goïta, a colonel in the Special Forces. Brought to power by a rebellion, he's been slow to follow through on a promise to schedule democratic elections. Mali is under a regional embargo and for the past few weeks has been at a crossroads with a surge of nationalism and Pan-Africanism. For the last 10 years, France and other allies have deployed thousands of troops to Mali to fight jihadism. Now they're being replaced by the Chinese and the Russians.
The problem of security in Mali is very serious, because without it, nothing works. China, of course, will work towards finding a consensus with Mali and ECOWAS to find a solution and to resolve the current crisis.
Sans commenter, votre commentaire c'est possible. N'est pas notre commentaire. Vous pouvez expliquer tout ce que vous voulez, mais nous n'allons pas parler. Pour nous, c'est pas possible, monsieur.
The Russian delegation is not talking publicly, but is cheered by the crowd.
Vive la Russie, vive le peuple du Mali!
In the Kalabankura district in Bamako's right bank, we meet Mohamed Diarra. He is 30 years old and was born and raised in the Malian capital. Like many here, Mohamed is an ardent supporter of military power.
The one down there is Shogel Kokalamaiga. The other there is Assimi Goïta. And the little one there is Sadio Camara. These are people I like very much and whom I support. That's why I named my animals after the president, the prime minister, and the defense minister. Since the founding fathers of independence, they have followed an ideal. This ideal is to see the emancipation of the African people. I subscribe to this idea, to be able to better address this fight and finally see the African people blossom. From 2012 until now, France has been here. That's 9 years. And what has been the result? Every day, they burned villages, murdered pregnant women, burned them alive, killed children. That's why we need other partnerships. We don't want any more interference. We don't want any country, whether it is France or another, to impose their will on us.
It is January 22nd and a new day of protests in the streets of Bamako. A week ago, hundreds of thousands of Malians took to the streets across the country to denounce the regional sanctions imposed on their nation. This gathering was organized by a hardcore nationalist group made up of young people. Here, there is plenty of anti-French sentiment.
I'm really happy. All this patriotism inspires me. I'm really proud of the Malian people and proud of the African people.
The crowd of thousands marches around the city, growing by the hour.
This event is a complete success. To see my Malian brothers like that, my African brothers here to support Mali, really it goes straight to my heart. I once again say thank you.
Very few voices dare speak out against the regime.
Those who only believe in Russia, for me, they're Malians who have been manipulated. I can prove this by the fact that the current authorities are trying to change the debate. They're in the mode of manipulation. We need debate because that is the right way to handle the transition. It is this kind of manipulation that pushes people to support those in charge of the transition and to demand Russia and its mercenaries to come. Young soldiers who do not like going to the front lines often take advantage of the dysfunction to overthrow democratically elected governments. And once in power, they do not hesitate to invite mercenaries to fight the terrorists. But in the name of what sovereignty?
The mercenaries are with the Russian private military contractor, the Wagner Group. They represent the armed forces of Russia abroad in countries such as Syria, Libya, Mozambique, the Central African Republic, and more recently, Mali. This whistleblower is taking a big risk by showing us the military airport in Bamako, where the Russian forces are believed to be.
At the airport, there is an area reserved for the Russian contingent which arrived recently. There's also the UN forces and the Malian forces. There are roads that have been closed within the airport so that we cannot see the Russian contingent. They know that Malians are divided on this subject. There are many partners who will only ever accept paramilitaries come to fight alongside them. This is why there is no communication. They also know that some Malians, who are the successors to the first president Modibo Keïta, are also against it because for them, the defense of the integrity of the territory must exclusively return to the Malian forces. Where you see the antennas and installations is where the Russians are based. That's where they unload their equipment. All of this unloading is done with the utmost discretion. This is it, Air Force Base 101.
This base is where we find the Russian forces. It's not clear if they are with Wagner or if they are conventional Russian troops. We don't venture any farther. In the backdrop of the Russian presence in the country is a virtual Cold War. It's a battle of information being waged online by powers past and present in Mali. This video is a good example. Its origins are unclear.
L'information vous place au sommet du monde. Le groupe paramilitaire russe Wagner compte intervenir sur le sol malien avec 4500 hommes, qui seront déployés à partir du 11 novembre prochain dans la bande sahélo-saharienne et dont la mission consistera à lutter contre le terrorisme et à soutenir les forces réglementaires du Mali et de ses voisins à faire face aux défis sécuritaires dans la région.
The images you see in the video are fake. Everything looks like a really serious newspaper article, and that's why internet users can't tell the difference. It's a technology which is accessible and which is not expensive, and the manipulation works really well because these are images that were superimposed.
Alou Diallo and his fellow bloggers spend their days tracking down fake news, which pervades the internet and sows division among the Malian public.
We are in a very particular context in Mali, with all the latest news about coups d'etats and military takeovers, and these soldiers who are now in power. And this nationalism, which is gaining strength, diplomatic tensions too between the military junta and the French authorities. It's really conducive to the spreading of false information. Each side tries to sway the public.
Kati, a town northwest of the Malian capital, is where many of the rebellions started. This last coup is no exception. Mohammed comes from a military family, and Kati is his home.
She says this collaboration with Russia is the solution to our problems. The French army has been here for 10 years, and nothing came out of it. Since the arrival of the Russians in just a few months, there are results on the field alongside the Malian armed forces. And she also says that Colonel Assimi has the support of everyone here.
How do you manage to stay relatively moderate? Everything is a little tenuous in Mali at the moment, and also in Burkina Faso and in Guinea. How do you manage to stay moderate?
You know, everyone has their own vision of things, their own perception. What people must understand is that there is a difference between French political life and the French population, as there is a difference between Malian social life and the politics. This is where the confusion is.
Confusion with countries on the verge of chaos, while Mali and its new allies push France toward the exit. More and more, what's happening in Mali is spreading to the rest of the Sahel. With it, a sense of uncertainty for millions of West Africans.
Our reporter Cyril Pine is still with us. Cyril, thank you for that massively informative film. The situation in Mali then is rapidly developing, as we know. Anti-French protests in that report, as we saw. What kind of problems did you experience filming in that atmosphere?
Well, it's quite unique because France 24 is very widely seen, watched in this part of Africa, French-speaking Africa, traditionally and culturally allied to France. So as you can see, people are just talking to me while I'm filming now. They just go, Macron, a killer with the Nazi. Well, it's you can understand by what you see. And so you are part of the paradigm, because people are saying, get out, France 24, you are French media, just get out. And you can see we are namely on the billboard. And I was myself named and saying, just get out. But still, so far, it's still very much contained to a war of words. There are no aggressive behavior so far, but it looks like very much we are turning a page in this part of the world in terms of the French presence.
And Cyril, in terms of the so-called transition that the military junta had promised when they took over, there are no actual signs that this is going to happen, are there? And I'm just wondering where, in your opinion, things are going to go from here.
it's very much a trip on the unknown for millions of people in Africa, because they are developing some sovereignty ideas, some nationalistic, populist ideas. These very people in power now, young officers who just took power and not very eager to return it democratically. So it looks like it's quite, again, a jump in the unknown, but the problem is on the field with the propaganda, with the social networks, with a lot of tools used, namely by the Russians, against the French. It looks like people don't really understand so far. So, well, very difficult answer to give you so far.
Clearly a fast-moving situation. Cyril, thank you very much for your insight. Cyril Payan, our reporter there. You can see his report again on our website, france24.com. 3 times in recent months he's been to Mali. He knows the situation like the back of his hand. This is Reporters on France 24. Stay with us. Most of all, stay safe.